Guten Morgen und willkommen zur Live-Übertragung der Tourismus Namibia, des Tourismus Namibia Magazins. Mein Name ist Frank Steffen, ich bin der Redakteur der Allgemeinen Zeitung und natürlich vom Tourismus Magazin. Natürlich nicht allein, wir sind da einige, die daran arbeiten. Willkommen zu dieser Show. Bevor ich jetzt weitermache mit der Show, will ich Sie daran erinnern, also heute, genau in einem Monat, wird Samstag sein, an dem wir dann feststellen werden, wer die Gewinner während der Namibia Tourism Expo waren. Also ganz abgesehen davon, ob es die Braut des Jahres gibt. Es wird aber auch den Tourist des Jahres geben. Es wird einige andere Preise geben. Wir werden wieder diesen Postkartenwettbewerb haben, wo Sie sich bei oben auf der Bühne mit uns treffen können und einfach ein Foto mal von der Familie machen, gegen einen Hintergrund im Prinzip ähnlich, wie Sie es gerade hinter mir sehen. Wir haben da verschiedene Möglichkeiten, Sie einzublenden, wo immer Sie gerade sein wollen. Und das haben wir ja letztes Jahr als Wettbewerb mit eingeführt. Also Preise gibt es ohne Ende. Und ja, und an dem Samstag ist dann natürlich auch der Tag, wo wir dann unsere Live-Show haben, also nicht nur wir jetzt als Tourismus Namibia im Internet, sondern auch später am Tag gibt es dann wirklich, wir haben da einige Künstler, die reinkommen, denkt da so spontan an Jerusalemer, das wird dann auch alles auf der Bühne passieren und so weiter. Also richtig schön und wir sind auch richtig gut eingerichtet. Die Bühne wird dann natürlich aufgebaut und auf der Rasenfläche wird es typisch, was man in Europa im Moment sieht, so kleine, will ich mal sagen, abgezäunte Areale geben, wo dann jeweils man sich einbuchen kann, Karten kaufen kann und da ist dann immer Platz für 6 Personen, sodass der ganze Abstand beibehalten wird, damit wir eben die Covid-Regeln beachten. Also das wird ganz interessant. Ich denke, für Namibia ist das eine neue Erscheinung. Drüben ist das jetzt schon alles schon ein paar Mal durchexerziert und wir wollen natürlich gerne, dass Sie teilhaben daran, dass wir einfach alle mal so ein bisschen abschalten können und so weiter. Ja, aber das ist soweit, die Namibia Tourismus Expo, die ist am 4. bis zum 7. November. Jetzt kommen wir erstmal zum Inhalt dieser Show. Wir haben natürlich wie immer unsere 3 Rubriken, also Topics und dann Destinations am Ende nochmal to the point. Aber bevor wir uns jetzt mit den Topics dieser Woche befassen, schauen wir schnell rein, was wir an Werbung für Sie bereithalten. Ja, Topics. Topics will ich mich so ein bisschen beschweren diese Woche und ich hoffe doch irgendwo, dass da draußen jemand zuhört, der oder die auch vielleicht einen Einfluss auf diese Sache haben. Ich finde, was im Moment in Namibia passiert, finde ich nicht gut. Ich habe so ein bisschen das Gefühl, dass unsere namibische Regierung sich wirklich wahnsinnig viel Mühe gibt, den Tourismus wieder neu aufleben zu lassen. Und sie sitzen immer in dieser Situation, wo auf der einen Seite wir auch von der Presse viel Druck auf sie ausüben und vor allen Dingen auf unser Ministerium für Umwelt und Tourismus. Und Wir setzen den Druck auf dass sie bitte die Regeln schnell möglichst verändern und harmonisieren, damit das alles klappt und unsere Besucher wieder endlich zurück nach Namibia dürfen. Und dann habe ich das Gefühl, als ob dadurch, dass in Europa im Moment oftmals die linke Hand nicht weiß, was die rechte Hand macht, kommen andauernd neue Regeln und neue Verbote. Und es ist ja teilweise dann schon lachhaft. Ich meine, ich dürfte jetzt theoretisch nach Deutschland nicht als Besucher. Ich dürfte nur dahin, wenn ich studieren möchte oder also mein Studium fortsetzen möchte, wenn ich einen deutschen Pass habe und all solche Sachen. Aber als Tourist, als reiner Tourist bin ich nicht unbedingt willkommen. Wir auf der anderen Seite sitzen hier und wir heißen natürlich alle gerne willkommen. Wir wollen unseren Tourismus ja erhalten und sitzen mit der Situation, wenn meine Frau einen deutschen Pass hat, dann ist sie willkommen. Sie darf rein, ohne groß mit Covid sich konfrontieren lassen zu müssen, also mit den Testen und allem drum und dran. Aber ich habe meinetwegen jetzt keinen deutschen Pass, sondern einen namibischen Pass. Dann gehöre ich ja theoretisch hierher und muss also plötzlich mich für Covid testen lassen und durch die ganze Quarantäne und so weiter. Und dann hört man, dass drüben das geändert wird und dann wieder hier was geändert wird. Und so hinken wir der Sache immer hinterher. Und wir kommen nicht zu Potte. Und da habe ich ganz interessante Ziffern mal für Sie ausgearbeitet. Wir hatten das jetzt am Montag in der Allgemeinen Zeitung, aber ich wollte das gerne nochmal hier auffrischen. Ich weiß, dass die Zahlen jetzt nicht mehr aktuell sind. Die Zeit hatte ich dann nicht mehr jetzt. Ich hatte das am vorigen Wochenende ausgearbeitet und der Stand ist vom 2. Oktober für Deutschland und wie gesagt 4. Oktober für Namibia. Es geht mir weniger darum, ob das nun genau auf den Tag genau ein Vergleich ist. Es geht mal generell darum, was sind die Tendenzen. Und bei 83 Millionen in Deutschland, die sich auf 357.000 Quadratkilometer zurechtfinden müssen, sind 232 Leute pro Quadratkilometer zu finden. Unsere Schätzung ist jetzt 2020 2,7 Millionen. Bis unlängst hat man noch von 2,5 Millionen gesprochen. Egal, ob es 2,5 ist oder 2,7, so sehr ändert sich die Rechnung hier nicht. Auf unseren 825.000 Quadratkilometern haben wir dann 3 Personen pro Quadratkilometer. Und hier kommt jetzt mein Argument rein. Wenn wir dann unsere aktuellen Infizierten nehmen, von 2000 gegenüber 24.000 in Deutschland, und wir nehmen das als Prozentsatz der Bevölkerung, dann sieht unseres natürlich doppelt so hoch aus wie Deutschland. 0,07%, was ja immer noch sehr niedrig ist, gegenüber den 0,03% von Deutschland. Dabei muss man aber nicht vergessen, dass Deutschland ja im Prinzip eine viel niedrigere Rate vorzeigt als die meisten der EU-Länder. Und somit vergleicht sich unsere 0,07% gar nicht mehr so schlecht. Und wenn man dann endlich mal so ein bisschen abweicht von diesem Standarddenken, das ich leider im Moment so ein bisschen feststelle, dann muss ich sagen, dass Infizierte pro Quadratkilometer in Deutschland 0,07% sind, 0,07 Personen sind und wir 0,002. Das heißt, ich müsste 500 Quadratkilometer zusammenbringen, um endlich eine vollkommene infizierte Person irgendwo vorzufinden. Das ist lachhaft. Dass man da überhaupt noch hingeht und behauptet, dass Namibia ein Risikoland ist, das sehe ich überhaupt nicht ein. Ja, Warnung, so wie es halt in Frankreich, Spanien der Fall ist, vermeiden Sie dieses Gebiet oder jenes Gebiet, das sehe ich vollkommen ein. Darüber kann man in meinen Augen reden. Aber ein ganzes Land zu verurteilen, finde ich totalen Quatsch. Tut mir furchtbar leid, aber das ist, was es ist. Wenn wir gucken, wie viele Personen getestet wurden, hier 16,99 Millionen drüben und bei uns nur 100.000, ja, das hört sich dann für einen Moment an, als ob wir da nicht viel tun, aber wenn man dann prozentual das wieder vergleicht, ist es gar nicht mal so schlecht. So, und wiederum, wir vergleichen Namibia mit Deutschland, das sich in Europa relativ gut dasteht. Jetzt, wenn wir die Neuinfizierten nehmen, dann ist es auf EU sowie im Außenamt ist es ganz groß veranschlagt, dass man, also wenn man ein Land ist, das 50 Neuinfizierte über die vergangenen 7 Tage pro 100.000 Mann hatte, dann gilt man automatisch als Risikogebiet. Nun gut, Deutschland hat 15, wir haben 22. Selbst wenn ich die 22 mal 2 nehme, bin ich immer noch nicht nah an den 50. Denn da kommt dann der kleine Schwanz danach, dass wenn man nahe der 50 ist, aber ansonsten die Systeme nicht ganz ausgereift sind und ich weiß nicht, was da alles dran ist, dann müsste man sich das nochmal überlegen. Bei 22 bin ich so weit unter den 50, dass ich nicht mehr weiß, was man noch vergleichen will. Vor allen Dingen, wenn man dann überlegt, dass die meisten bei uns genesen sind. Also als Prozentsatz der Bevölkerung ist das 0,35%, in Deutschland 0,32%. Nun, was gucke ich hier an? Was vergleiche ich, was bei Deutschland so viel besser ist als wie bei mir? Wenn ich dann die Verstorbenen betrachte, 123, war ja wohl zu erwarten bei der kleineren Anzahl an Bevölkerung, dass das sich dann mit den 9.500 nicht direkt vergleichen lässt als Zahl. Aber was sich auf jeden Fall vergleichen lässt, ist, wie viel Verstorbene haben wir als Prozentsatz der Infizierten? Und da sind wir knapp über 1% und in Deutschland sind es 3,2%. Nun, wer ist denn hier der Risikostaat? Und wir wissen, dass Deutschland kein Risikostaat ist, also sollte doch irgendjemand da noch vernünftig denken können und sagen können, warte mal, wir müssen in Namibia, können wir ja nicht nur einfach pauschal das abrechnen und sagen, weil wir das mit 130 Ländern machen, dann machen wir das mit denen genauso. Es muss doch irgendwo ein bisschen Vernunft herrschen. Und warum mache ich diesen Appell an die Vernunft? Das hat einen ganz einfachen Grund. Wir sitzen in einem Land, wo wir seit Jahr und Tag die Hegegebiete fördern. Und wir haben inzwischen wirklich viele Hegegebiete. Und diese Hegegebiete werden in Ordnung gehalten meistens von Kommunalgemeinschaften. Das heißt, man hat denen nahegelegt, du weißt du was, du brauchst nicht unbedingt ein Rinderfarmer sein oder ein Karakulfarmer oder was weiß ich. Du brauchst auch nicht alle den Wald abholzen, damit du da meinetwegen dein Maisfeld anlegst oder was. Nein, mach es anders. Gebrauch die natürliche Ressource und kümmere dich um den Tourismus. Wir sorgen, dass wir euch die Touristen bringen. Und das hat Deutschland zum Beispiel ja auch sehr, sehr stark gefördert, also unterstützt finanziell. So, warum geht man dann jetzt hin und verurteilt ein Land, das dieses Ding endlich auf die Reihe bringt? Und warum ich das so kritisch finde, ist, wir haben diese Leute jetzt endlich überzeugen können, dass das die Antwort ist. Und damit erhalten wir ein Erbe, das nicht nur ein namibisches Erbe ist, das am Ende ein weltweites Erbe ist. Und das sehe ich nicht ein, denn das hier ist nicht hier von wegen Lichtschalter an und aus. Es kann nicht sein, dass wir den Leuten sagen, okay, in einem Jahr machen wir weiter. In einem Jahr hat dieser Mann sich anders entscheiden müssen und sagt sich, na gut, dann habe ich halt keine Elefanten, ich habe keinen Löwen, ich habe auch keinen Rhino, ich brauche das Zeugs nicht. Wenn ich hier Rinder hinsetze, dann kann ich meine Familie überleben lassen. Covid hin, Covid her. So, und somit bin ich der Meinung, dass da ein gewisses Maß an Verantwortung weltweit liegt, daran, dass alle dazu beitragen, dass dieses Erbe erhalten wird. Dass man nicht Namibia das plötzlich alles vorlegt und sagt, naja, dann mach mal. Ich finde, hier müssen wir alle machen. Und daher habe ich mir fest vorgenommen, dass ich dieses Thema heute mal ein bisschen anspreche. Denn ich finde es einfach verantwortungslos, einfach zu sagen, naja, wir können da ja ein bisschen was hinschicken, damit die wenigstens überleben. Nein, wir reden von Menschen. Wir reden von Menschen, die auch ihre Kinder an die Schule schicken wollen, die auch ein ordentliches Leben finanzieren wollen, die sich auch ein Haus bauen wollen und so weiter. Und denen haben wir immer gesagt, die Hegegebiete, das ist die Antwort. Jetzt müssen wir auch beweisen, dass wir sie unterstützen, wenn es dann mal nicht so gut geht. Und das kann nicht nur aus Namibia kommen, denn wir haben gar nicht die Ressourcen hier, zumindest die Finanzressourcen. So, und das war einfach mal die Tatsache, dass Namibia immer noch eine Reisewarnung hat und als Risikogebiet eingestuft wird. Ich wollte das nur mal so ein bisschen in den Kontext bringen. Ja, und dann haben wir natürlich auch was Schönes erlebt in dieser Woche. Der SPCA hat sein 50-jähriges Bestehen gefeiert, also es ist ein 50-jähriges Jubiläum und da sehen wir auf dem alten Bild da, das war Herr Theo Bierberg, leider weiß ich nicht, wer die Frau ist, vielleicht sogar seine Frau, vor 50 Jahren, als er dabei war, den Grundstein zu legen für den SPCA und das ist natürlich viele Jahre her, 50 Jahre, das hört sich so wie neulich an, das ist ein Ende hin. Und hier ist heute das Team, das sich damit bemüht. Man sieht, lustig, also freuen sich alle irgendwo und ich muss sagen, ich freue mich auch für Sie. Ich muss ja dazu sagen, dass wir diese Show ja auch in Englisch bringen und in Englisch habe ich das betont und ich betone das auch hier in Deutsch. Ich finde es sehr wichtig, dass sich die Swakopmunda, die Stadt, nochmal überlegt, ob sie nicht doch dem SPCA so ein bisschen unter die Arme greift. Ich fand das schade, dass wir neulich schreiben mussten, dass, ich glaube, ein lächerlicher Betrag von 20.000, der denen fehlte, und Antrag gestellt haben, dass die Stadt ihnen das zusätzlich zur Verfügung stellt. Und die Stadt geht hin und sagt, nein, das brauchen die nicht, geht aber stattdessen hin und übergibt noch mehr Verantwortung. Also Tiere, die eingefangen werden von der Stadt, müssen automatisch auch verpflegt werden und so weiter. Und dann frage ich mich plötzlich, hallo, wie kann denn das sein? Mehr Verantwortung, aber weniger Geld. Und somit finde ich, dürfte ruhig der eine oder andere mal der Stadtverwaltung so ein bisschen ins Ohr flüstern und sagen, nur so nebenbei, es geht auch anders. Denn es geht ja nicht nur um die Haustiere, also Hunde, Katzen und auch nicht Farmtiere nur. Der SPCA macht vieles, was eben zum Schutz der Tierrechte eben auch beiträgt. Und ich finde, sowas muss unterstützt werden. Ja, das sind unsere Topics heute. Und jetzt machen wir gleich weiter. Wir haben jetzt gleich die Destinations, natürlich mit Chloe Deer. Welcome back. Hi, Chloe.
Hello, Frank.
Chloe's again joined me here. Chloe Deer, she obviously writes for Tourismus Namibia. Most of you will know, those who follow our magazine and obviously this show. It's obviously not the first time she's here. She's as much part of the show as I am. So, destinations, you've got 3 ideas again for us.
Yeah, I think the view behind us today is Springbok Vlakte, which is actually on the way to our first destination that we're going to talk about today, and that's Kokerboom Kloof, which is inside the Richtersveld. And I've got to say, I mean, it is an unbelievable camping experience.
This is actually just south of the Orange River.
Yeah.
And people will be forgiven if some of them thought it was like somewhere in around about IJs or somewhere even at Namibia. Wow. But these are beautiful places.
But what's so amazing about it is how, it is so remote that your camping spots and everything, you can't, very few people actually go there because there isn't water, and so it really is, it's proper camping. You know, there's very little rainfall in the area.
This is a large region, you can see.
But actually, even though it is Kokerboom Kloof, and the Masaurus Quiver Tree Camp and Giants Playground rivals it, but it's mainly because it's the quiver trees haven't actually survived. It's actually too harsh, if you can believe it. Quiver trees. So a lot of them you'll find are stumps now. It's a shadow of its former self. But climbing up Die Tuin, which is the backdrop of all the campsites, I saw dik-diks, I saw the most, dassies, all the small game that you wouldn't otherwise see. They're very shy. And so when I actually got lost when I was when I was climbing the Tuin and everything like that, because once you're behind one of those rocks, in the photographs they look tiny, but in person, you don't know where you are. You lose your.
That must have been quite a scary moment.
It actually was. I'm underplaying it, but I did, because what would you do? There's no water. But that is what makes it so exciting.
But it's also a word of warning, really.
I would say so. I would say,
look at this, it's almost like a chameleon on top.
It's, those rock structures, the landscape is almost Jurassic. You can imagine dinosaurs roaming there. But I haven't been anywhere before where I've felt so removed from the rest of the world. You literally feel like you could be in the center of a volcano. And so I would say, bring your own water, because obviously due to the remote location there isn't water at the campsites, and it's very rustic. So bring your own water and have some kind of a way to wash yourself.
Be more self-reliant.
Yeah. And so, but we actually weren't prepared enough for this, and we were in the middle of December, which you can just imagine the heat. We didn't end up staying for the night because we hadn't prepared, and actually we wanted to just go swim in the Orange River.
I'm surprised how clear your lines are still. So even though it was very hot,
Frank,
it was actually quite surprising to me.
But I think that's just kind of luck of the draw. But because you also shield from all the elements, all the wind, everything, so it's just scorching heat. But
no, I know that because I've been at Namibia myself, walking around there in December, and actually the lodge owner warned me, and I didn't imagine. I on my own drank in one afternoon 5 liters of water.
I mean, I seriously can't believe it.
It really is scorching, and it's unbelievable that how hot the Namib really becomes. And I mean, let's face it, that's still part of the Namib.
Yeah.
It's really much the same area,
Yeah. And then following on, you know, we've spoken about how we traveled the Sendlings Drift and returned back to Namibia. Love that border crossing, by the way. But in our most recent edition, we rode the Orange River. And one thing that is surprising, and I even experienced when I was in the Richtersveld, is the diamond mines that you find all the way along the Orange River.
Yeah, on both sides, actually.
On both sides. And they're active when you're in the Richtersveld, but when you are on the Orange River, there's some abandoned ones. And actually, my favorite campsite that we stayed at was Rudy's mine, which is also on the edge of the river, but it gives you, I mean, unbelievable placement. The rolling lawns almost feel as though that they were planted there on purpose. But we went on a hike up to, I mean, this picture shows, I mean, why I thought the Orange River was called the Orange River, because it reflects the mountains and it looks so orange, but that's obviously not the reason. But
you wouldn't know.
Oh, I'm not sure, but it definitely. I mean, look at that.
I know for sure.
It looks.
It's actually because of the orange in the Netherlands flag.
I was convinced. I was convinced.
No, this is Dutch history, really.
So after camping in that pristine environment, we went on a early morning sunrise hike up to Rudy's mine, which is why the campsite's called that. And I mean, because it's an old abandoned diamond mine, I mean, everyone who goes there tries their luck in finding a diamond or two.
Is this like just on the river?
This is just above the campsite, and they literally left all of the equipment and just
That's
vanished.
a sad part on the one side, and on the other hand, it now becomes a bit of a novelty.
Well, the thing is that actually Ari, our guide, his friend has since taken up the contract to revive the mine again, which I find really sad because it was my favorite campsite along the river.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you think of a better location to be placed to mine? I mean, but I'm surprised. It is almost, it's so different, so contrasting to have this equipment and then this like barren landscape around you. But
it shows you how hard that life is. If you decide to have a mine there, you really know that you're in for a hard time.
But I mean, taking the guide, Ari took us on a step-by-step tour of how the exact process of how you would mine diamonds, and it's so. I mean, it's very rare that you'd get the opportunity because you know those are usually areas that you're not allowed to go into. So it was interesting for me as a novice to actually understand
what they do.
What they do, and I'm surprised to learn that none of this equipment can be used any longer. Because to me, it looks like it just needs a bit of oiling. But actually, my birthstone are rubies, and Ari took us into a part of the mine where, using the light of your phone, you can shine it into the rubble, and you can find little rubies. And it was unbelievable. I mean, they are minute in size, but using the light of your phone, it's incredible what you're able to find.
Now you know what the people must have felt like when for the first time in the full moon they saw diamonds in
I can't even believe it.
You know, that reflected, and they thought, wow, this cannot be.
Well, I mean, it made the experience even more informative, and you know, when we were staying in the when we were staying in the Richtersveld, you know, the problem of zamazamas and everything was very real. I mean, one of the shepherds had told us that zamazamas had been shot in the bum the day before we arrived. So there are diamonds there, you know, they haven't just vanished. I mean, that river brings them down day by day. So it's,
the people still try their luck.
They still try their luck. I mean, I didn't find a diamond, sadly, but...
you wouldn't tell me anyway.
But, I mean, look at the size of those springs. I mean, you can just...
You feel that there must be some value.
I mean, clearly but it's on the one hand, it's actually quite sad to see how it really destroys the landscape, you know. But luckily this was hidden from view. But it'll be sad once those big lights start shining in the evenings and you know,
and you're suddenly
you start
reminded that
hearing
there are people in there.
And here you can see I was using the light to find the rubies, and I mean, it was honestly, it made the experience, you know, incredible.
It's very interesting, I must say, and to me, yes, I'm still convinced that not all of it, but I'm sure some of it just needs some oil and just revamping. I mean, surely some of the stuff can still be used, even though it wasn't used for a very long time.
But it's sad to also think, I mean, how could you possibly just abandon all that equipment?
Oh, but you go into the Namib and you do these desert trips and you'll see all over abandoned places. I mean, pretty much like Kolmatskop and Elizabeth Bay. The thing is this, much of the stuff is more expensive to ship back to where you want it to be than going there and simply buying new stuff.
Yeah, logistically, obviously, I mean.
Yeah, and especially in those areas, in those years especially.
Yeah.
You know? And I've heard so often with mines, they've already paid everything off, it's written off, and you know, now they start giving away some of the stuff, they sell some of it, but whatever is not really worth it, then they just leave it and that's it. And I find it sad because I feel there needs to be a contract, some form of deposit system as far as I'm concerned, where they actually deposit some of their profits with the mines and energy or whatever it is. It can be a trust account. They just need to provide proof
to restore
so that
the landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when they close down that day, that reserve must be there. So if they want to make place and just move off, fine, then the money is there to at least appoint somebody else. I do not agree that that cannot be managed. I'm sure it could. Yeah, and then we're moving back closer to home.
Back home again, yeah. To the actually one I think is one of the best kept secrets of Namibia. Well, at least I don't think it's very well known. But staying at the farmhouse in the Namabrant Reserve is a spectacular place to spend with your family. I mean, it accommodates 10 people in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there isn't even you know, there is nothing. I mean, I'm even losing my words. But what's so wonderful is that you really are steeped in the history of the land, because they've kept all the original kraals and the original outhouses and fences. So you really get a sense of how harsh the environment really is, you know, and how difficult it must have been to actually farm caracal in that remote environment. But it's having a water hole only 50 meters from your house.
And then
the visitors that you have. I mean, I was very surprised to see giraffe, and you know, they came every single day. I think because
I would as well if that was that I've got.
I think because obviously it's such a remote location, and the original farmers had to borehole water for the caracal. You know, it is one of the few places that they're able to get water.
Let's face it, caracal was the only that you could, only sheep that you could actually have there, because they're so hardy and they're used to this sort of situation. But still, I'm actually quite glad they converted it back into a nature reserve.
I think so. I mean, it's being in that dark sky reserve, you really do not see stars like you see when you're in the middle of nowhere like that, with no light pollution.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And what I loved so much about it was that you do still get the feeling that you are immersed in the sand dunes, but you don't have the tourist population that you have in Sesriem. And, you know, as magical as Sossusvlei is, you know, the never-ending tourists that flock to that area sometimes does taint your experience, and sometimes you do just want to kind of get lost in the middle of nowhere on your own terms.
And this is a typical area. I mean, it's close to the hideout. It's wherever you go down there. It's close to Nadit even, that goes further down.
It's got its own dunes. It's got its own, you know, so being able to do it on your own is also what I loved so much. Being able to just self-drive, you know, climb the dunes. You're pretty
much left alone. I mean,
we didn't see a single soul, other than the odd farm worker. We didn't see a single soul, and that's what made it such a romantic experience. And I can just imagine going there with, you know, your whole family and really just cutting off from the rest of the world. Because, you know,
even as a group, we did it as three, you know, group out of 3 people and with their families. and it's just great. Yeah.
But the sunsets what really, I mean, caught my eye. You can see here there was
This
almost.
thing is photoshopped, I'm sure.
I promise, Frank. I promise you, I've never seen anything like it. It almost felt like we were in that cartoon Up, where there has
It's
balloons
almost
above the
sci-fi.
house. That cloud just hovered above our house for until the sun completely set, and I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like it. The
It's funny,
condensation.
it's as if it's somehow rolled up and so on.
I don't know.
It's
You
too
can never
funny.
tell with the way that the winds and you know
Yeah.
you always see those tumbling, almost like miniature hurricanes when you're
Yeah.
there. But sunsets like I've never seen before. But stars. I mean, at this point I hadn't practiced my star photography, so you'll just have to believe it by word of mouth.
Yeah.
But since then I've practiced a bit more. But still,
No, we've shown photos before, and it is always astounding. I've
Yeah.
got a good friend who does photos of stars as well.
it's hard.
And yeah, but he's got it like quite perfected by now, and it's unreal if you can do it. I would normally just take a pinprick it and make a photo against the
Because
light.
actually, photographs can't do it justice. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, that cloud experience was something probably you won't see again, but always wonderful to be
But
there
that's
to
a nice
capture it.
thing, you know. This is what will always sort of take you back to that moment, and that's really what this whole thing about tourism is about. At the end of the day, no matter what you do, whether it's a short holiday, a long holiday, whether it's a weekend or whatever you do, when you go to these places and you've got a unique thing like that.
No two experiences are the same.
And exactly, so in 10 years, you will still remember that cloud and you will tell somebody, hey, I once experienced this.
Yeah.
And it's the experience that takes you back. I once read a report about it, and they reckon the value of photos and watching them afterwards is the fact that you transported back into that moment. And it from anew causes you to relax. Like it or not, or you won't even know it, and never mind like it or not, surely you will like it.
As
But
you transport back into
yeah,
that time.
and memories are one of the things that make you relax. And so, yeah, this is exactly what we're trying to do here. And you've got them by the dozens now. I'm quite sure about 2 years ago you wouldn't have ever imagined having so many different impacts
But
on your
most
brain.
people say to me, Chloe, how are you still able to talk about these experiences that happened so long ago? But that is the power of photography. I mean, it can
Yeah.
trigger your mind
And like I said,
Yeah.
it transports you back to that moment.
Yeah.
And you know, it's what I always say, even if you're not a good photographer and you don't have the photos, it's all still in here.
yeah.
And that is always the best. That's the best photograph. Your brain is amazing in that regard. And my wife always marvels about the fact that I will have been to a place 10 years ago and I still know how to drive there and get to know it. But it's because you somehow still remember those things. And that's just what it is. So, yeah, hope we brought you a couple of nice ideas again. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you, Frank.
And then let's repeat this next week again. Thanks. Ja, und das waren die Destinations. Macht immer Spaß. Die Chloe kommt halt rum für uns. Wir schicken sie auch überall immer wieder hin, versuchen immer neue Ideen zu finden. Wir haben jetzt in der letzten Zeit sehr viel mit dem Süden gemacht und so weiter. In den kommenden Monaten werden wir uns wieder Stück für Stück, also ganz klar, jetzt kommen ja demnächst erstmal die Namibia Tourismus Expo, also die Handelsmesse. Da werden wir ein bisschen andere Themen auffahren, aber dann danach ist die Urlaubsausgabe. Da geht es natürlich ein bisschen mehr an die Küste und sonstige Ideen. Und dann im kommenden Jahr haben wir einiges Schönes für Sie eingepackt. Da kommt dann Casa wieder zur Sprache. Wir wollen entlang der Küste hoch, Skeleton bis durch andere Seite raus auf die Seite nach Angola und wollen mal gucken, inwiefern man Namibia als Zielland anfliegen kann und dann von da aus Touren nach außen vorbereitet. Also wir hoffen, dass wir Ihnen da Neues bringen können. So, und als nächstes haben wir dann die Rubrik To the Point, also unser wöchentliches Interview. Aber bevor wir da einschalten, gucken wir noch mal schnell rein, in was der Markt uns anzubieten hat. Welcome back. As you can see, I was now joined by another person. This is Netumbo Nashandi. It's Netumbo, actually.
Netumbo Nashandi.
Okay. I'll still try it a couple of times. Anyway, Netumbo is the new chairperson of FNATA. You might remember that the papers reported about it roughly 10 days ago, I think it was.
About on the 23rd of September is when
so
I got appointed.
It's not that long ago, let's say 2 weeks. And yeah, congratulations, you're the new chairperson, lots of work waiting for you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me over here today.
Yeah. So tell the listeners a bit about who you are, where you come from, what is your plan with FNATA?
Okay, well, hi, I'm Netumbo Nashandi. I am from Namibia. I am half Namibian, half Zimbabwean. And I've been in the tourism sector many moons ago. Some of you may remember me from my time at Namibia Wildlife Resorts. I used to manage the European accounts. And then after that, I went on to become an activist at the Emerging Tourism Enterprises Association, also known as ITEA. And that's how I came to be the chairperson at FNATA. Okay. Netumbo loves running a lot. I'm such a homebody. I love spending my time at home, cooking, listening to music, reading, learning, and hanging out with children.
Okay, so next time we invite you, we'll do that at the Namibia Tourism Expo for the cooking show.
Yeah, why not? Why not, you know?
Tell me now, obviously you're not alone in the committee. Have you guys met already? Have you sort of deliberated a bit?
Yes, we have. There are 7 of us on the committee. We had our first virtual exco about a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was very fruitful, and we're expecting to meet again next week sometime. We're still confirming the dates and everything. But
okay, so now in the beginning it will be a bit more.
In the big, well, we
especially
did,
with COVID.
Exactly. It has to be a lot more, because as we all know, we're in a very challenging position as the tourism sector. It's not business as usual.
So you've had a meeting with the Minister of Environment and Forestry and Tourism this morning, and I'm sure you guys must have spoken already about the more pressing issues. What are they? Which have you identified?
Absolutely. So this morning we introduced the new board to the Minister of Environment and Tourism and to the CEO of the Namibia Tourism Board. The most pressing issue right now is the Tourism Revival Initiative. We're facing so many challenges in terms of clarity, communication downstream, and just a whole load of Pandora's box issues. But I'm happy to report back that we had a very, very fruitful private session with the minister today before we introduced ourselves to the media. And the Ministry of Environment and Tourism is continuing in its support to ensure that we revive the Namibian tourism economy. As of today, for example, we sent out a call to all of the tourism industry in Namibia, not just association members, because we understand that business is not usual right now. So we have to also intervene in an unusual manner. If we want to open up Destination Namibia as effectively and seamlessly as we're hoping to, we have to ensure we have synergy amongst all tourism stakeholders and amongst government and everyone. So for example, we sent out a call to all of industry to assist us in clarifying points that are a bit vague and not clear enough to the industry and to our potential future guests, so that we can continue opening up seamlessly. And it was a very great teamwork effort happened, and we're working very closely with Namibia Tourism Board and all the other associations and people that are not within aligned to associations, just to make sure that we don't waste time, for lack of a better word, because we may have wasted time over the past few months because we were not in synergy. We're not synergizing all of our issues and points.
I totally get that, but maybe we can expand a bit on that. It was always my understanding in whichever industry you looked at, whether it's the building industry, whether it's transport, whether tourism and so on, it was always my understanding from all the ministers, I'm really talking of all the ministries, that they prefer to speak to associations for the simple reason, let's face it, if you and I go to the minister and give our opinions, they are likely to differ in so many ways. And so if you've got 100 people, you've got 100 opinions, and he doesn't have the time to listen to each and everybody. That's why you really have these umbrella organizations. So I understand that there's a bit of hodgy going on in the background. People are not always happy with everything, but my argument is still, then they should involve themselves in these associations, get a job, get involved, actually tackle the problem from your side. It's almost like a person who's not happy with this church and says, okay, I'll open my own. That's not the solution, because at the end of the day, you'll have a council of churches again. So isn't that pretty much the same thing in your case?
It absolutely is. It's a very thin line. Like we need to balance out both sides of the equation. So what we suggested to do today was to involve everybody that is active within the tourism sector. Maybe you don't belong to an association, but you've received guests over the past month or so, and you have experienced, maybe you might have experienced some glitches that could be attributed to the protocols and or the regulations not being clear enough or contradicting themselves. And if we and by virtue of you not being part of an association, we cannot take your experience further to ask our stakeholders to fix that situation up for us. So what we're saying today is that, look, we really need to get tourists back into Namibia.
We do.
But we're not helping ourselves by issuing out contradicting messages and doing the back and forth between the different stakeholders and government, wasting so much time in between because we are not collating all of the points of clarity from everybody that's active within the tourism sector. So what we said was that, okay, we want Destination Namibia to thrive. That's all of our objective in the tourism sector. As for now, we need Destination Namibia to open up. We need the world to be comfortable that Namibia is open and ready to receive everyone. And in order to do that, we need to assist each other and assist our government to come up with protocols and regulations and guide them, not come up with it. I take that back because I'm not a legal person.
At the end of the day, it's their call. Yeah.
It's their call at the end of the day. But if we are not organized as the sector, we are just stabbing ourselves in the foot at the end of the day. So what we're saying is, let's collate all this information together. Let's help government come up with regulations that are to the benefit of Destination Namibia. Once all the protocols are in place, once we're all comfortable with the regulations in place, once we are all understanding and interpreting the regulations the way we should be interpreting, then we can go back to business as usual. You and your association,
Exactly.
we continue on.
Talking of these associations now, I mean, so far we've got FENATA, we've got HAN, we've got TASA. Maybe you want to explain to our listeners a bit what is what in this regard.
Absolutely. So FENATA is the Federation of Namibian Tourism Associations. It is the umbrella body of all associations that are engaged within the tourism value chain. Our members include HAN, which is the Hospitality Association of Namibia, TASA, the
It's Tour Association, Tour
Operators Association of Namibia. We've got ITEA, Emerging Tourism Enterprises Association.
That's where you were previously?
Exactly. That's where I'm still there. I haven't
but
fit
I mean, you don't have that much of an active role anymore.
Exactly. And then we have CARAN, which is a Car Rental Association of Namibia. Then we've got NAFA, which represents the professional hunting industry. Then we've got TAN, which is the Tour Guides Association of Namibia. And then we've got ANTA,
whatever it is.
I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is. It is what it is. I need to get my way around it still. And then we've got the B&B Association. We've got Air Namibia.
Oh, so there is a B&B association.
Yes.
Is Airbnb already part of that or not really?
I don't think.
So these
I'm
are
not
all
sure.
the
I'm
future
not
musics
sure of that.
that are coming out from the woodworks now, I suppose.
It seems like it. So in total, FENATA right now has 11 associations, or we are umbrella bodying 11 different associations, and our primary objective is to be the voice of the private sector to government, and to also assist Namibia Tourism Boards, feed Namibia Tourism Boards so that they can market Namibia as a destination effectively. We also have a mandate that we can represent the private sector and communicate with international tourism-related bodies.
Okay.
So our mandate is
so you can actually
quite
have a good look at joint ventures and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're considering is we're exploring how we can entice more. We're exploring how we can entice more membership within the FENATA umbrella. I don't have a concrete set plan to share with everybody
over time,
now.
once you settle, you start looking at the individual organizations, have a membership drive and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. So where do you see your strongest role and contribution towards this whole thing?
How do I contribute? I am a very passionate tourism person, and I bring a fresh energy to the tourism plate. And also I believe, because I have experience of both sides of the tourism cake, if we're speaking to emerging tourism enterprises, and also having worked with private sector in the past.
Yeah.
So I think I bring a needed balance to the tourism cake, for lack of a better word.
And I wouldn't be surprised if FENATA over time has to take a much stronger role in supporting emerging tourism. This is really a pet project of mine. I suppose some of the listeners will be bored by now, but one of the things that's always struck me is, and it's a favorite pastime of mine, the 4O regions typically. We send people to Kokoland, we send them to Kavango. So left and right, we send them all, and in between we send them to Etosha. But for one or another reason, we somehow don't get it right to send them up to Oshana, you know, or Oshikoto, or Hangwena, whatever, and somehow get them together. And I feel it's a hidden paradise, really. I've been there. I've done some wild camping. I've done gone to Nana, and even there you find some very nice camping sites of Congo. If you look at those areas, you can do wild camping. People are very nice, and they're not different to when you do wild camping in Bushmanland or in Kaokaland. So I feel there needs to be a much stronger role in that regard, because those people are missing out on an opportunity, really.
I agree with you on that point, and it speaks to us marketing Namibia in a diversified manner. There's so much more to Namibia, to the Namibian tourism product that we're bringing to the table.
Exactly, they're not only lions and elephants.
There's our communal conservancies. Exactly. Namibia is a success story in conservation circles. We're the first country to have protected areas listed within our constitution, or to have our constitution protect national parks. I think we're now clocking up at 44%. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when we hosted the Adventure Travel World Summit, and I was also involved in that team, and worked with fantastic humans there. And at that time we were at 42% of our land mass is protected. I believe we're now reaching 44%. So that's something that we can be extremely proud of.
Okay, let's face it, there's the Namib involved also and so on. That takes obviously quite a large portion, but I totally hear you, and I feel, I mean, I always have to smile when I look back years ago. This one guy suggested we turn the whole of Namibia into one solid tourism park. Game reserve. Now let's not go there.
No,
that won't work, because we still have to eat and do things. But still, I think where it makes sense, we should at all times do it.
Exactly.
But what cheeses me off a bit at the moment is that we've got this sort of thing. We're inviting people here, opening all our systems, streamlining them, and then it almost seems as if on the outside there seem to be people who somehow always find another little piece that could make it impossible, you know, and then I get a bit agitated for the simple reason. I've actually written an article, and it's part of what I present at the moment, is if you look at square kilometers, I've worked it out last week on the weekend. Square kilometers in Namibia, if you take a population density of infected people per square kilometer, it's 0.02 people per square kilometers.
Lucky us.
So you would have to get 50 square kilometers together to have one person infected. Now, how far apart would you want people? I mean, so I totally get it when people say that there are some areas that are dangerous or should be avoided or whatever. Give a warning, by all means. But don't shoot down a whole country that has so huge and many opportunities to take people, and then not have them in there.
Absolutely in full agreement with you. We have the potential to tap into our arts and cultural tourism, mineral resources tourism, agricultural tourism,
up in the north.
Experiences. There's so much more to the Namibian tourism cake, and I'd like to challenge the Namibian public, get involved in the tourism sector, start up a tourism related business, just get into it so that you can also feel like you're adding value to our tourism economy. Teamwork makes the dream work. That's my favorite corny, catchy line.
Okay. Just one last question to you. And I know that I actually found it sad that comments such as those were made, but sometimes one needs to face them. One of the things came when you were elected to an industry that is, whether we like it or not, still to a large degree held by white people. I think basically because most of them were involved in building it, and that's where your emerging industry is so important. But I just found it a bit cynical of some people to say, oh, they've just included her because she's black. What would you say to these people?
Well, look, it's a fair, I suppose it's a fair perception. It's fair enough, you know, that perception is out there, because that is what the industry and people have been experiencing. We have to acknowledge things as they are. Living in denial and under a rock does not serve us well. However, having said that, I don't care for that type of criticism. The work will speak for itself. I'd rather focus on the issues rather than the personalities behind. But it's important to address that elephant in the room, that I'm a token appointment, or Fenata needed a black face on there to capture the emerging side and so forth. Let those conversations keep on happening. It's fair enough, but also let the work speak for itself.
Yeah, let it not hold you up in what you're doing, but rather to enhance it and make use of the opportunity and get right what was wrong so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish you all the best of luck for that, and thank you for coming in and having this conversation with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, good luck, and to your colleagues as well.
Thank you so much.
Right. Gut, das war das Interview. Netumbo, sie hat mich immer wieder korrigiert da drin. Nashandi, sie ist die neue Vorsitzende, also von FENATA, dem Dachverband für sämtliche Tourismusunternehmen, also will ich mal sagen, Dachverband der Dachverbände. Ich finde es erfrischend. Netumbo hat wirklich ein paar gute Ideen, und ich hoffe und wünsche ihr viel Glück dabei, ihr und ihrem Team. Und hoffe, dass wir auf Dauer nochmal mit ihr Kontakt aufnehmen können. Wir sind auch so verblieben, damit Sie öfter mal informiert werden, was sich in dieser Branche tut. Das bringt uns zum Ende dieser Show. Ich danke fürs Zuhören und bleiben Sie gesund. Wir sehen uns in einer Woche.